pick yourself up off the floor, you say yes, and I mean, I feel about this text and this story the way I feel about pretty much everything I do. It's a precious story to someone, and you're there to serve the director's vision, and it was an intense 6 weeks there in that apartment, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Of course, it's exciting to get a call from Polanski, and of course, it's doubly exciting if he wants you to participate in a play by Crazy. And you know, the famous Listening who plays with always love and joy. But then, after we've been busy with excitement for about a day and a half, we do the job. And that's where I love Roman Polanski. And I really learned to admire this person.
One thing that I would say, that I know that if Roman were here, he would say himself, because he said it on set several times, that we, all four of us, and Jodie, who we miss very much today, we all four just got on extremely well from the first day of rehearsals. And I think we all felt a sort of a healthy sense of trepidation just at taking on such an extraordinarily crafted piece of writing, but also, you know, I think quite understandably working with the great Roman Polanski. We're only human beings, and we're perfectly capable of still being terrified about how experienced we are. And I think that sort of unified natural fear sort of bonded us from the get-go. And I think as we started shooting, we discovered that actually we all worked in fairly similar ways. Lots of sharing of ideas and predictions about what do you think we're going to be doing tomorrow, and how do you think he's going to rehearse this. And it was, you know, we were a great group of friends, and that was very valuable, I think, for us to have. And as I say, Roman said himself, he actually did say, and I think we took it as a compliment, he said he'd never come across a group of actors who were completely non-competitive with each other and really sticking together. And I think we were all really quite taken aback by that compliment, and made us feel really good about how we were functioning as a group.
We worked together on different parts, so to be different and to have different approaches is extremely helpful. And that's actually, when I saw the movie, that was one thing that I got excited about, is that we maintain our individual ways until the end. Because very often we rehearsed this like a play for 2 weeks. We did run-throughs. We did several run-throughs. You know, for one case, it was many run-throughs. But anyway, it was helpful in the end. We could have done that on the stage, more or less. But still, we all maintained our individual ways because we're all, you know, kind of in one way or another actors. So, methodology, I don't know, we were busy, we couldn't think about it. Same thing with me, just to come to your last part of your question, I don't know, I don't occupy myself with methodology, I just, working. And that's really
Well, what happens is the first moment you get that phone call, the anxiety starts to build. Well, I mean, as good as the actor who was in the play, well, am I worthy of working with Roman Polanski? Am I worthy of working with these other actors? And you have all these, somewhat small concerns that seem huge. And then you get there on the day, and you realize, I have work to do. And so you set aside all those anxieties, and you set to your work like a carpenter or something, and that made it easy to focus. And Rome is also, I think whatever age he is, he's older than me, and he was always the last person to say, all right, let's go home. We're all tired. You know, everyone else will be drinking espresso and trying to, you know, make it through these intense days in Rome. We'll be doing sit-ups and, you know, jumping around and excited to do the next thing. So, yeah, I focused on that. I focused on telling the story. Honestly, I didn't come into this feeling that I was any more of a comedic voice than the other actors in the film. And if anything, I felt like this was a change for me, even though it's a very funny story and it's also meant to be very real. And so, anyway, I don't have much to add to it other than I just tried to put the circumstances as real as possible and be as honest as I could with the character, and hopefully it would end up being funny. And there were many points when we were shooting. In fact, I think the majority of the time, we didn't feel like, well, that was certainly funny. You know, these people are meant to be going through somewhat of a traumatic experience with each other, so the comedy would come later. We all just kind of trusted that Roman would put it together in a way that would allow an audience to
It was absolutely hilarious shooting the vomit sequence. We were all completely beside ourselves with laughter. And it was done in a very clever way because, you know, you can't, that's actually only the second time I've had to throw up on screen. The first being a very small piece in episode 2 of Mildred Pierce. But this was, you know, I had to contain a lot of vomit in my mouth, which is not possible for a person to do. So, without going into too much detail, it was a fairly complex rig, and there was some extremely clever CGI involved. But these guys got a real kick out of seeing me leaping about in a blue suit, in which I looked like a sort of cross between one of the Avengers and Barbarella. And my kids came to work that day for the vomit day, and I'm so thrilled that they were there because they literally haven't stopped talking about it since. And it really was utterly hysterical. It was hysterical, and everything smelled of sick for days. And I went home, and you know, it really was between the cracks of my fingers and in my hair, and it was exactly as it, I think, as Yasmin intended it to be.
And then it needs to be said that the vomit was prepared according to Roman's recipe.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think Jodie and I, in fact, all of us felt very lucky that we were playing very fully developed, fleshed out characters. You know, each individual person on that stage that I saw, and hopefully it's transported itself to the screen in some mysterious and magical way. Every character is extremely strong, complex and complicated, but all families are, and I think you know, that was one of the things that was very evident in the screenplay. I mean, I certainly wasn't channeling or trying to emulate previous great performances that I have seen, but I think we were all aware of the fact that our characters start in one place and end up somewhere that is completely different and sort of terrible. And so we all had big journeys to go on, and it was very, very hard to concentrate on making that as evident as we possibly could in one room, in real time of an hour and 40 minutes. And I think we really did just work very, very hard on doing the best job that we could and supporting each other, and you know, trying to honour these great characters that Yasmina created. I don't think I particularly have a sort of set, you know, formula or pattern for getting ready for a job. Even if I do, I'm sure that half of it is spent wandering around, you know, staring at the wallpaper and hoping it's going to reveal itself to be something other than I originally thought it was. You know, you say that this is a rather more simple story. Actually, I found it to be incredibly complex and detailed in really unique ways. And I think every family dynamic